Greetings, everyone. So today we have a very special episode of Global Virtual Morning Report. And today we want to be discussing clinical cases with people from all around the world, like we usually do. Instead, we're going to be diving into the residency application process in the USA with two incredible guests, Dr. Elise and Dr. Ravi. Both are associate program directors in the USA and also international medical graduates. So first, I'm going to explain to you all how this is going to be structured. First, I'm going to ask for the incredible team that helped to put together this episode to introduce themselves. And after that, I'm going to introduce our guests. And then I'm going to start asking them questions. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, Andrea?
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Nampa Guzman. I am a medical student in Lima, Peru, and I'm currently doing a research internship at Roswell Park at Buffalo.
Please go next to Gabriel.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today. 48 people. Wow. Hello, my name is Gabriel. I'm a medical student from Lima, Peru. My interests are infectology and dermatology, and very excited for this meeting. I look forward to Kirtan.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Myself, Kirtan Patolia. So I have just graduated from BJ Medical College, Ahmedabad, which is in the state of Gujarat. So it's in the western part of India. And I am so excited for today's. In fact, I am having palpitations right now because when you meet the program directors, you always have that feeling. So I'm having that feeling right now, but I'm sure I will learn a lot from this. So thanks, Rafa, for organizing this amazing session. And maybe now Vele can introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Kirtan. Hello, everyone. I'm Vale. I am from Lima, Peru as well. I'm also interested in pursuing residency, especially in neurology or infectious diseases in the future in the US. So super excited to be here and have the chance to talk and learn from Dr. Gallo and Dr. Singh, who are incredible program directors. And so without further ado, I will pass the mic to Ravi so that he can introduce himself because he's also joining us on this session.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi. I am one of the CP Solvers team members, and my relationship to this topic is that I am a little bit in the bridge of the two worlds that everyone else is here. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. That's a lie. I was born a little bit outside Beirut, Lebanon. If my mom ever listens to this, she will scold me for saying that. But my mom had actually come to the United States in the 1970s as a Lebanese immigrant. And so I was born abroad, but actually had US citizenship when I was born. So it was very easy for me to come and actually apply to United States programs from abroad, but as an American. And so I have a little bit of a foot in the world that folks are in with an interest in medicine coming from outside the United States, but did not have the challenges and the barriers that you all will discuss and navigate today. But what I really wanted to say and why I'm here today is because I'm just so full of pride and joy of this platform that has been created and molded by many people now is being taken to new heights and dimensions, led by our fearless leader, Rafa, but also by Andrea and Kirtan and Vale and Gabrielle and many others who you don't see. I also wanted to shout out Tiago and Laura and Gabby, who I see, and Kiara now, who I see, who are fundamentally important members of this effort. So thank you for the mic. I told you I always talk too much, but that's okay. That'll be it for today for me. I'll hand back and listen to you all and bask in the wisdom that comes our way.
Okay, so first I'm gonna introduce our guests. First, Dr. Elise Gallo. Dr. Elise Gallo graduated from the Medical School of the Pontifícia Universidade Católica do Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. She did a residency at the Hospital Nossa Senhora da Conceição, repeated it at the University of Miami Miller School, Jackson Memorial Hospital, VA Hospital. She did a pulmonary and critical care fellowship at Mayo Clinic in Rochester and joined the critical care staff at Mayo in 2017. Dr. Gallo is an associate professor of medicine and associate program director for the internal medicine residency program, Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And Dr. Gallo, just one question. What is your favorite food and place to visit in Brazil?
My favorite Brazilian food, I'll have to say feijoada, and my favorite place to visit is obviously my parents' house, because now it's a visiting place, because been here for 12 years now, so I do call the US home.
Awesome, and thank you for being with us. And now Dr. Ravi Singh graduated from the University Medical School of Debrecen in Hungary. He did a residency at the MedStar Health Internal Medicine Residency Program in Baltimore, Maryland. He then moved to Sinai Hospital, Johns Hopkins Internal Medicine Residency Program as an academic hospitalist. Dr. Singh is currently an Associate Program Director, Internal Medicine Residency Program at Sinai Hospital in Baltimore, and also a clerkship site director at Sinai from Johns Hopkins School. So what about you, Ravi Singh, Dr. Singh, sorry. What is your favorite food and place to visit in Hungary?
Oh, I'll start with the place to visit, Budapest, actually. So Hungary was a very I'm originally from England. I was born and brought up there, and then went to school in Hungary. I wasn't able to I was on a waiting list in England and found a pathway to school in either Ireland or Hungary. There were several other schools, but it's very cold in the winter, and sometimes you need a break from the rigors of school. So getting out to Budapest, which is a wonderful city, and I recommend to people to definitely visit, that part of Eastern Europe. That was a wonderful escape while I was there. Otherwise, London is home, Southeast London. And favorite food, it's an Indian dish. I think my mother-in-law is great at cooking this up, is dal chole. So for those that are coming in from India or visit Indian restaurants, I guess Ravi is also familiar with this dish as well. It's a wonderful dish. Lots of nutritionist value.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us as well. So first, this is the part one. We're going to be focusing on their struggles, their journey, and then the first question is with Andrea. Please ask the question, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to talk about the journeys and struggles. So I was wondering if you can tell us about your journey before coming to the US, and what were the reasons that made you come to the US? We start with Dr. Gallo and then Dr. Singh.
Sure thing. Like Rafa said a little bit early, so I did medical school in South Brazil. Then I did residency, internal medicine residency there. And to be 100% honest, it was during residency that I think I wanted to come. I always thought I wanted to come to the US for like something like a master's or a PhD, because I started studying English the same time that I was learning how to write in Portuguese, so around 7 years old. So I always knew I was gonna do something like studying something here at some point. And then during residency, a professor from Mayo Clinic actually went to visit my residency program, and we became friends. And now I call him my godfather, and I tell everybody that he's my godfather. And he's like, hey, just come. And I always, like, during residency in Brazil, I realized that I really like to write clinical stuff. So I really realized that I wanted to do clinical research. And I really tried really hard in Brazil to do that during residency. And even though I had great mentors, it's just like the support for those things, financial support, it was just not there at that time. And again, we're talking about 2008, 2007. So just be mindful of that. So then I did my residency electives here. And I think I said this before, and if you guys already heard this, I'm really sorry. I came in August, and I applied fully ECFMG certified the following September. 100% do not recommend doing that. I did all steps, 1, 2, 2CS, I'm sorry, in about 8 months. Highly do not recommend. My grade at the time in step 1 was the worst thing that could have happened to me. And hey, like I turned out okay 10 years later, 12 years later. But I want to make sure I say that out loud. So 100% do not recommend. And I thought it was going to be okay because I've always been like pretty good with tests and grades, and totally sucked on step one, like sucked, like that's the word I want to use. But I matched the following year and matched in Miami, and great residency. I'm very, very thankful for all my pathway. And then I came to Mayo following my husband. We matched together in Miami, and then he changed specialties. And since he was here also when I was here for rotations, he matched here for internal medicine, and then I joined him here, and then we never left. So that's what it was.
I guess I'll jump in and answer that question, but a couple of points. I think, you know, kindness in this process goes a long way. It's a very difficult journey as an IMG. Everybody has a different story and everybody has a different background. I was lucky enough, I rotated through a sub-I at MedStar, and actually I ran out of funds to do the step 2 CS, so I wasn't able to apply that year. So I was able to do the step 2 CS, and as Dhruv mentioned in the chat, thank God it's dead. But it's another way of them getting money from us, and it's absolutely a awful test that has some subjective measures that work against IMGs. It doesn't really reflect what you know. It's just communication skills and other things. So and a positive impact of COVID is that it's been laid to rest. So I wasn't able to match during that year or enter the match, but a program director at MedStar, Dr. Richard Williams, actually Reza knows him, because here in Baltimore, we have an annual student, a conference, which is named after Dr. Richard Williams, and Reza has actually participated in that and done 2 sessions the last 2 years before he left Baltimore. So he was kind enough, an intern didn't show up or had removed themselves from the program, and he knew about me, about my scores and everything, and he offered me a position. So sometimes good things come to those, you know, who aren't as lucky, and things do work in your favor sometimes. So it's a long and arduous process, and I'd say, you know, definitely give it your 110%, but along the way, things might not work out, but still have faith, because sometimes there's other ways that things can happen for you.
Is it okay if I make a comment? Because Ravi, love you. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna fully agree with the CS thing. I personally, being the only IMG in my APD role, like here right now, I think it's gonna be harder for foreign grads, because it was one of the ways that people use to evaluate our English. And the EOT is not, we're not all very familiar with the EOT yet. And we knew at least that on CS, yes, expensive, agree, should not have been that outrageously expensive, but at least we knew how people were evaluated, what were things that were being asked and things like that. And at least in Brazil, I can only speak about Brazil, some of the ways we communicate with patients, in my opinion, are done better in the US. And I think studying for CS did prepare me for my first few days on wards in terms of like how to communicate with people. Some keywords to say that they sound silly when we are studying, but saying out loud to someone who looks different than you, you're safe here, whatever you say is going to stay here, does open up doors. And I don't remember ever being taught that in Brazil. So I'm not sure. I am someone who did more in CS a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It does have a added benefit, but you know, as a program, we've sort of shifted the onus of that onto us now. And so what I did for this year, what we've probably had to do is make do with sort of a simulation. So this year, what I did was start a simulation. I'm a big fan of medical simulation, and also introducing some clinical reasoning into it. So what we did was, why not bring the new applicants or the new interns into the sim lab and go through how to do an H&B, how to discuss a patient, how to break bad news to a patient. So it's a lot more work for us. So you're absolutely right about that. It does have some added benefits, but I just can't justify the cost and then the travel, and it's a lot for an IMG. But yeah, when I took it, it was just available in Philadelphia. So you had to trek from Baltimore, it's not that bad of a journey, but if you're halfway around the world, you have to fly into Philadelphia and take it. But there were other centers that opened up and allowed for you to take this test.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we're doing like simulation too. We have like a whole boot camp and like how to communicate, how to even get like informed consent and things like that. Again, personally, I felt like studying for the test was very helpful for my medical communication skills in the country that I chose to come to. That's another thing that I want to make sure that we all have that in mind. We decide to come here, we should adapt. I'm gonna die on that hill.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead, Gabriel, please?
Sure. So for the next question, deciding to pursue a medical career in the United States, Dr. Gallo and Dr. Singh, as international medical students, that requires a lot of courage. Learning English, communication skills, as Dr. Gallo was talking about before, lots of paperwork, visa issues, traveling miles away from your country. Being aware of these obstacles can create a clearer view of this process. So I wanted to ask about what obstacles did you face?
Alice, you want to take that first question? That question.
I was hoping you were gonna take that one first. But sure. What obstacles? Again, like I said, my step one was terrible. So I had to be like really loving and in like interviews. I do think I worked my bleep off when I was doing my electives here. Like I was always the first one here and the last one to go. So I think that was helpful, kind of like buffered how bad my step one was. And again, I'm so old that back in my day, we were 2-digit scores. And the cool thing to have at that time for an IMG was 99, and I got like 82. So like pretty bad. Again, shameless, like it was what I got. So those were some things. Another thing that, again, I want to make sure that we say these things out loud. The dream is beautiful. The journey, to me, like I would not change for the world. But when I came, I was 29 years old, I think. So putting my 29 years of life in 2 suitcases was very soul crushing. And I was like, why am I doing this again? But then I had like my first author publication like a couple of years later, and I was like, this is what I'm here. But that was very tough. It was tougher than I was expecting. And just like again, I don't know if you're all familiar with this, but there's a thing here in the US that is called the credit score, that at least in Brazil, we didn't have that. You do have a lot of bureaucracy to get a credit card and things like that in Brazil, but like it was not a credit score. And when you come to the US fresh, you're like a ghost credit because you have nothing. And like just like renting an apartment was a nightmare. So I was like, oh, okay. So those things, like I think was more like everyday life struggles that I had that I was not expecting and I was not prepared for. And I don't think anyone prepared me for it, but I don't think I've ever asked. So I'm glad you asked me this question, Gabriel. But I think it was like more life, like everyday life stuff. I think my medical school prepared me very well to be here. I think doing residency in Brazil was great. And again, I do think that my residency in Miami was very good, very welcoming. The same thing, my training here in Mayo, very, very welcoming. I don't think I had medical struggles.
Lots of wonderful things there, Alice. Like I can't imagine just 2 suitcases. My sort of transition wasn't as difficult coming from England. Actually, I had my dad was here. He's a world traveler, and he was like one day like, let's go to the US. So I was sort of behind him, and when I made that transition over. So, what I'm going to talk about is more what do I see my trainees or learners face when they move over. So I'm in a program which is the largest community program in Maryland. We have a large number of IMGs. So I do work with a lot of IMGs, and I do see them come in with major struggles. But if you're in a program where you have a large population of IMG patients, you have a lot of people to fall back on. The other thing that you learn is, if you've been sheltered for a lot of your life, you're back home with family. Now you've moved to this strange new world, this strange program, and you have to make adaptations. So, you have to be resilient, and you're in a program that will offer you a lot of support, will really get you through this and really improve your performance. So things like communication, definitely there's cultural barriers, there's, difference in slang and the way people are. There's even differences in, with Alice up in Minnesota and I'm in Baltimore and Ravi's in San Francisco, there's a way different patient population that we deal with. So adaptation is key, but these programs nowadays, any program that you go to, I can really tell you that, from listening to what people are doing and innovating, they are bringing in IMGs and fully like backing you up and, giving you all the necessary training to get you up to speed. So our main focus is, yes, we have US grads, we have, graduates from osteopathic schools, US IMGs, but for the the non-US IMGs, our task is to get you up to speed. That way, then you can become independent, because if you do struggle, then it only backfires. Then you may become depressed. Then you may start self-doubting yourself. And these are things that we want to work against. But definitely the lifestyle, the cultural differences, even accents, like even I'm from England, my English was pretty good. I walk into a room and patients were like, how did you learn good English? I'm like, what do you mean? Or they're like, where are you from? And I tell them like, oh, I'm from the UK. They're like, no, but where are you really from? So, expect these odd sort of conversations, but, people don't know. So there's a lot of cultural insensitivity and, we'll get by this. But, the beauty of this is our patient population is now dynamic, diverse. By bringing in IMGs, we're actually helping them. I have patients from India, Pakistan, from the Middle East, and all over. They look at me and like, oh, finally, somebody who's kind of from my background and I can then discuss and talk to, so they feel comfortable. So, we have a large burgeoning population from Central America here, and having IMGs from all over the world definitely helps that population in serving them.
Awesome. Why don't you go next, Kirtan?
Yes, thanks for sharing those insights, Dr. Gallo and Dr. Singh. That was really inspiring. And now moving to the next part of our session, that building a CV. So as an applicant, for example, I'm applying for this season. So I think these questions matters to students like me who are applying, that what specifically you look for in IMG applicants. So as far as we know that scores are important, letters of recommendation are important. But apart from that, what specific aspects you look for in a CV that makes someone a strong candidate? And maybe you can enlighten us, Dr. Gallo, first, and then maybe Dr. Singh can share his thoughts.
So Ravi, do you want to take this one first? I'm not sure I have like a perfect answer.
So, for IMGs, it's basically, there's filters. So the process usually is, in a program, you'll have the program director, associate program directors, you'll have a program coordinator, and a lot of programs will have their coordinator be instructed on, okay, we have, for instance, actually last year was the most amount of applications that we had, probably like 4,000. Maybe filter these 4,000 to 500. And how do we go about that? So unfortunately, letters aren't looked at. I mean, personal statements aren't looked at. It just, you don't have the time to look at 5,000 applications at one point. But then again, if you think about it, those 5,000 applications will be at X, Y, and Z institutions. So, if you don't get an interview at one spot, you may get an interview at another. So don't be disheartened if you don't get an interview at some of the places that you're aspiring to be at. But say you have 4,000 applications. If you were to spend like 5 minutes on each application, you're talking about 41 days, spending 8 hours a day looking through each application for 5 minutes. So, unfortunately, scores are a big filter. I know step one is going to pass, fail, and a lot of programs will put the onus then on step two. and now step 3 for the IMG will be also critical. And then I've also been hearing down the pipeline now, like neurology or anesthesiology will come up with their own sort of sort of objective measures, maybe a test, maybe something. I'm not sure what they'll have, but they'll need something in lieu of step 1. So for IMG, step 1, 2, 3 is a big deal. And we do have, like Alice mentioned, okay, you don't do well on step 1. We have applicants that do better on step 2 and step 3. So that trajectory sometimes mean that you can meet that benchmark. You're able to get to that level. The reason why these steps, especially at community programs and for IMGs, why is it crucial? Because it's a reflection of, can you pass the board exam at the end of the day? And a lot of programs are accredited by the ACGME because they have to meet a benchmark of 80% passing at the ABIM internal medicine board exam. If not, I think like this, a third of programs may right now be in some sort of probation or by the ACGME because they're not meeting that benchmark. So then the program directors have to institute measures to try and get those board, those numbers up then. So that means more remediation, more board review classes and things like that, more board review review courses and things like that they have to invest in. So, scores are one filter. If we're familiar with a school, so like if Rafa is at one school and we're like, okay, we had one candidate from that school, we're familiar with that school, that school is sort of like a pipeline for us. We take anybody that applies from there. So if you're familiar with that institution or school, that makes a big difference. And then yeah, personal statements, letters and things. US clinical experience could be another one. So that could also be a filter. So each program, I'm not tuned into what their filters are, but I can definitely say that scores are a big one. But like you look at each program's information and you'll see what kind of scores do they cut off at. So like I know a couple of institutions, 210 is a cutoff. So it's not very high, but 210s can get interviews, and then the rest of the application is looked at on the day of interview. But I'll let Alice then fill in on any other details.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and the reason I asked you to take this first is like I am struggling also with like all of these new things, like not having like step 1 scores anymore. Our filters changed a little bit. We never had filters for scores, to be honest with you guys. Like when MA, we never did. We do have filters for clinical, hands-on clinical experience. At Mayo Rochester, you won't get an interview if you don't have hands-on clinical experience. Like you don't even apply. And one thing that I want to make sure that I say, because I am a very positive human being, is I see a lot online. Oh, are they IMG friendly? Are they IMG friendly? Are they IMG friendly? They never had a Brazilian APD. Like, imagine if I had said, like, oh, Mayo is not, like, never had a Brazilian APD. I would never put my name on the hat, you know? So I would be very careful with how you choose your programs as well. Like, they might not be an IMG friendly because they never had an awesome IMG like you. And you open doors for other people. So I'll be very careful with like those things. If a program is like very obvious on their website that they won't take people with a certain thing, don't waste your money on them. Just don't, because if they're obvious enough on their website, don't waste your money. Another thing that Ravi didn't say much, but I believe is very important for us to, again, be aware, because that levels the playing field, is cannot stress you enough how important it is that someone who is in your corner sends an email to a program director. Ravi, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but like if Ravi sends me an email saying, hey, worked with Andrea for like 8 months on CP Sobers, reliable, never missed a deadline, super great energy, I'm going to look at her application and I am going to read her personal statement and I'm going to read all of her letters. So having people in your corner is very good, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Americans are not afraid to ask for help. So don't be afraid to ask for help. I think at least in South America, it's very hard for us to self-promote. Here's not. And it took me about 10 years to be okay with it, but it's not. And there was something else when Ravi was saying that I wanted to say, and now I forgot about filters. And another thing, here at least, we do like divide and conquer between all the APDs and the PD. And I want to make sure, like someone said I was PD. I'm not the PD. I'm like an APD. Like I just have a vote. I make no final decisions. I want to make it very clear. But like we divide and conquer to review things. And personally, if something is not proofread and has a lot of grammar mistakes, I will not invite that person for an interview, because I think it's a lack of respect not to have someone to proofread your things. So again, be careful with that. You have, again, that the lack, not having something proofread shows lack of commitment, shows lack of attention to details, to me at least. So those things again, and I'm pretty sure other people feel the same way. And this is not for foreign grads, this is for everybody. This is, you have to have people proofread your application. I agree with Ravi, you don't have to pay for anyone to do that, but I'm pretty sure you have friends that can read that for you.
So, Dr. Gallo, just one question that I saw on the audience. Could you elaborate on year of graduation being a filter, please?
Usually is a filter for everybody, it's not just for foreign grads. Usually is about, I don't believe we have like a set filter, and Ravi, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a range, right? I think is like 5 to 10, 8 to 10, something like that. I'm gonna say again, impossible is nothing, but if you graduated more than 5 years, it's harder. And I know of programs that have a hardcore cutoff of 3 years.
Yeah, I'm just gonna piggyback on what you mentioned. That it's not a hard filter, but be prepared when you interview to have an explanation. So even if you have a poor, any of these things that we talked about, if you had a bad day and your step one wasn't great, be prepared to answer that. You still will get, we're not monsters that we're going to just look at the highest 270s and so on, but everybody has a story. And I've seen, I think Alice can also vouch for this, that I've had people with low board scores turn out to be stellar interns, and people with high board scores turn out to be very robotic like and very algorithmic, very stuck in their process. So you have to on the interview day look at the person and be able to discuss any downfalls in your application, any inadequacies. Time off can be explained. So say you were there's hardships always, there's an illness, there's other things that can be explained. But if you were to take, say, 2 years off to do the steps, that's kind of a red flag that X did the board exams in like Alice said, in 8 months she did them, and then you have people that take 2-3 years to do them. Why can't you do it in 8 months? So if you have a head start by doing it in 2-3 years. Sorry?
Don't do it. Don't do
it.
it.
8 months is, yeah.
No. One thing just to piggyback on Ravi as well. We again, a lot of programs do take a holistic approach, like what Ravi was saying. We do use filters because, again, we can't read 4,000, but the ones that go through the filters, or the ones that are lifted up by someone in your corner, we read them holistically. So take advantage of the personal statement to explain why you are applying 8 years after graduating, like what happened. And I want to make sure that you guys understand as well, like the reason behind the hesitancy with old grads, and I hate to use that word, but like it's very hard. And I promise you, as someone who did intern year twice, one in Brazil and one here, is very hard after being a practicing clinician in your home country, in your home language, to decide to come and be okay with hierarchy again. like you're on top of the world, and then you have to like hear someone who might be 10 years younger than you telling you what to do. So that's the main hesitancy. So again, make sure that your CV tells the story, that you are resilient and that you are okay and you're choosing to come here and you're still going to be a team player and you're still going to put your head down and work your bleep off. So make sure that I should have said tail off. You're going to work your tail.
Rafa, there was a question in the chat from Catherine about US clinical experience. I think that was probably something that we need to comment on. But there's pros and cons for US clinical experience. So number one, a lot of PDs do look for US clinical experience. I know with the pandemic, there's been this, I guess, change to tele rotations. I just got to, tell you to be careful because there's sort of like a pay for service sort of thing. You pay, you get this tele rotations, but there are many PDs that may look down on tele rotations because you're not really actually putting hands on the patient. You're shadowing somebody. It's not the real deal. It's sort of like a synthetic rotation. But US clinical rotations, what we're talking about are clerkships, sub-Is, externships, observations, which is interesting. It's like just observing. You're not really driving. You're kind of sitting in the back seat and watching. So it's not some PDs may not look down on that favorably, but these do generate, I guess, another aspect of this is letters of recommendation. How useful are they? But we'll discuss that, I guess, in the next 10 minutes, which is an integral part of the application process. But these clerkships or externships are valuable in that we've seen that you've gone through the process. You've learned how to do, one of the biggest problems that applicants have when they're an intern is, you haven't had EMR maybe in the place where you're training. So the electronic medical record, how to write a SOAP note, how to present an HPI, a new patient, and all of these things. But I also want to sort of stop and say, for those of you that join CPS and are putting in the time day in, day out, you see the format of how the cases are presented. That's exactly how you present to an attending, a brand new patient. So while you're on CPS, you're learning how to communicate in English, how to present the patient, you're learning how to analyze the data, you're learning clinical reasoning, which is now for this year, I guess, Alice, you know about this, that it is a ACGME core measure. Clinical reasoning has come back into focus, which we weren't really teaching before. So I'm glad to sort of emphasize CPS in the forefront of clinical reasoning. And that's why, I'll sort of say, like, I always come in to learn clinical reasoning, see what's new in the world of clinical reasoning. So, definitely the time that you guys are putting in is gonna pay off in bucket loads. And also last year, I was at the annual program directors meeting in internal medicine. And guess what? All the program directors were there, and Reza and Ravi showed up to do a plenary. It was the magician and the mathematicians, I believe. It was the presentation that they did. So all the APDs are well aware of them. So being on this podcast and being on this VMR every week, every day, definitely will help you in this endeavor, and definitely put it on your CV because it will help you stand out.
And just to add, what I believe what Catherine is asking is if we need to open people's applications. No, it says that you had clerkships, yes or no, because like the word is searchable. But be careful, because if you say clerkship and it was an observership, we know that you cannot do clerkships after you graduated. So we look for dates too. We will double check and quadruple check dates. So be careful of that. And to add to Ravi's good observation of how important letters are, make sure also, and I think I said this before, I just don't remember where, make sure that you ask for a strong letter of recommendation, because good writers and people who are familiar with the process know the words they need to say.
Alice, Can I just comment on the letters? I guess, Rafa, that's going to be, that's a very important part of the application. And I wholeheartedly agree with Alice. I have seen letters. So there are rotations where some, we talked about there's these services, there's this find a resident. There's a lot of this information is out there, and there are a lot of externships, observerships, and rotations, sub-interns that you can do. You just have to find out where they are. If some people have questions, probably email me afterwards and I can probably help you with that as well, trying to find a place for rotation. But I've seen letters from particular places where people have rotated, and it said John was a great resident, he rotated, but Alice was. So I've seen letters with two different names. So there's a template and they just put the names in, and it's just right then and there, that's a red flag. So just to be cautious that if you do rotate a place, which is just sort of like a chop shop for rotations, they're not actually writing you a letter. The other thing is, ask the people that know you well, the person, the attending, or the supervisor, whoever you're working with, the resident, chief resident, if they've gone to the lengths of knowing where you're from, who you are, what do you like to do, what have you done in the rotations. That way they write you a strong personal letter. There's all these templates where, it's this person showed up, read x-rays, did EKGs, and so on and so on. Or you can have like, this person, there was a storm, hurricane blew through New Orleans, and they were out in the hospital on the floors, helping people, helping this, doing this. If they write something like that, that stands out, rather than just like, okay, you did the presentations, you did the soap notes, you saw the patients in the ER and so on, read x-rays and so on. That's the usual. All those letters sound the same basically, but you want something that stands out. And you can also use this on your personal statement. So when you write a personal statement, don't make it a rehash of your CV. Maybe reflect on challenges, what you had, what sort of adversities that you had to go through or overcome during the process of medical training. Maybe an event, maybe you did some service abroad, maybe you volunteered. Things like that really do stand out. So when you write that personal statement, don't just put there that, you did the usual things during your rotation and so on.
Awesome, awesome comments. And I also love the honesty on the conversation that's going on. I think it's super helpful for all of us. So why don't you go ahead, Vale, and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for the honesty of your answers. Really learning a lot. And so the last question was on some of the highlights, or what were you looking for on an EMG? But then I wanted to ask you, and Dr. Singh made a point on some red flags on an applicant. So what are some of the things in the application that you can, or that can be considered red flags? So maybe you can go first, Dr. Gallo.
Valeria, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm just going to repeat your question to make sure I could hear you correctly. You want to hear about some red flags, is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. It's just like it got cut a little bit for me. Like I mentioned before, like if you have like spelling or grammar errors, to me is like, you sloppy. Like, I'm sorry. Can't have that. That's one. Two, I'm gonna give you guys some examples from like many years ago. So there was someone who put all of their publications as if they were first authors, and they were not. And we do double check. Let me tell you that some of us do double check. So don't lie on your application as well. Like Ravi said, like if you took 2 years to take steps, please explain that on your personal statement. Because just bluntly saying like I graduated in 2020 and then I didn't do anything clinical, I didn't do anything research, I didn't do anything, I just studied for steps for 2 years, that looks and reads weird for us. What else? I would say that those were the main things. And again, there are some letter writers that do bring up some red flags on their letters. So again, be on your best behavior if you're doing a rotation. Don't lie that you did like a clerkship when you did an observer after you graduated, and we can see your graduation dates and we can see your diploma and then like the dates you did the observership. I would say though that those are the main red flags. Oh, we do comment on our lures all the time. Yes, we do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all those points, Alice. Those are some incredible points. I'm so glad you're co-hosting this. There's a lot of things that I don't remember, and you're filling in the blanks there. And yeah, a lot of those, just not putting falsified information. The aim is to not make your CV, have your CV be direct and not overblown with a lot of extraneous information. Because what happens is a lot of PDs, APDs, chief residents, other faculty members will read your application on the morning of or the night before the interview. So if it's bogged down with a lot of information, it's just very difficult for them to focus in on things. And you know what? You want to also maybe put not as much detail, sort of put bullet points about what you did, but you want to leave that as a topic that can be open for conversation during the interview. Because if you put everything there, we'll find other things then to discuss with you during the interview process. But yeah, making sure you have, if the author issue definitely comes up, and then putting, if something's not published, but you put there as a peer-reviewed, published article, that also is a red flag, because there are people that are either they're very supportive, or some people that are looking for any discrepancies in your application to then deny you a spot in their program. So their whole look is all, looking for any flaws in your application. Definitely the personal statement, one page, be, sort of succinct, to the point, and get it checked. Don't just submit it, because there are things, even if I write something, it's going to have problems. So I'll send it, something I've wrote to somebody and just get it checked, double checked. And sometimes they give you some good ideas of how the personal statement should flow. The other thing is, I know that for this year, I don't know if Alice, you using the supplemental ERAS application, but for this year, they've come up with this new process. I think dermatology surgery are using that this year for more precise or concise sort of application, where you put in all what you've done and then they can sort of look over. We decided not to do it because there's more data points. We just want to concentrate on your main application. But it does allow you then to possibly focus in on an area or geographic location that you want to practice in or apply to a residency in. So there is that one dynamic with it. But you know what? I talked to a couple of program directors, and they just they're like, we're going to sit back and we're going to see what it does, if it's useful or not, because who knows, next year may be withdrawn if it's not very successful. Luckily, they have not asked for more money for it. So I think that's definitely useful. But we talked about the letters, that being a red flag, just like that was one. I just remember there was one letter where a writer had written, "Do not take this candidate," and I was kind of shocked. So there are people out there, you just have to be careful. If you didn't have a great experience and you just like, I need a letter, but I didn't have a good experience with this person, I'm still going to ask a letter. Do not go there. It may backfire, because you have given up your right to look at that letter, and they may write something just because there may have been some friction or some issue. They may not have liked you, or something could have happened. But just don't get a letter just for the sake of it. But those are a few things. Then the U.S. clinical experience, definitely that I think, try hard. When you go into this process, really put your 110% effort into it, because you do it half-heartedly, you may not get the result that you expect from this then.
Yeah. I just there are some very good questions on the chat box that I would like to answer out loud, if that's okay. Franco asks, a lore from your home country less valuable than a US lore? It depends. If it's two clinical lores, if it's clinical lore, home country, nothing. Like, don't even bother, honestly. Like, at least here at Mayo. However, if those 2 years of gap, you were working in this research lab and you did amazing things, and you were responsible for all of the, I don't know, PCRs of this amazing research, please get your Brazilian or whatever, Franco, I'm assuming you're somewhere from South America because you said Franco is a very South American name. I did something I should not do, never assume. But ask then your research mentor or your PI for your lab to write you like a letter, because those were your 2 years of perceived gap, right? But if it's clinical, like you rotated with me back in Porto Alegre in Santa Casa and you asked me for a letter, please don't. Like, waste of a letter slot that could be a strong letter. And then, so again, it depends. It's not that it's totally worthless, but be careful with, again, who writes letters and what was the experience with that letter writer. How does one stand out in a clerkship application? I don't think I understand this question, because a clerkship application is usually online and you just send your CV and in your step one, pass or fail. So I'm not sure I understand this question. And then someone asked about like holistic approach. And Ravi, please correct me if I'm wrong, but like here at Mayo, we look at all the applications holistically. We don't have a different, the only thing that differs from IMGs and US grads is clinical experience in the US. If you don't have it, we won't even look at you. Otherwise, everything is the same.
Yeah, we do all go through implicit bias training, so we do look at everybody equally. And I'm from the community program, which usually a lot of applicants will go for academic programs because they want to do fellowships and so on. For those that want to do maybe internal medicine, primary care, we do get people going to fellowships as well. But we rely on IMGs quite a bit. So there's going to be a shortfall in the US physician population pretty soon. The population is increasing. We don't have as many physicians. So 1 in 4 physicians in the US is an IMG, and they desperately do need IMGs to fill the ranks. So, you are welcome in as an immigrant and as a physician. So, but there are a lot of training. There's like about now 10 years ago, there's probably 390 programs now. 500 plus IM residency programs. So they're definitely growing. There's about 2 in new programs in Maryland, which I know about. But when you look through all the programs, look at the friendly states. New York has the largest amount of programs. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan, Maryland is at 12th. So these are the areas where you have to make the major impact. Look at the programs where they take IMGs. Don't look. There's programs where they'll be like, we take IMGs, but then you look and you're like, there's no IMG. It's like at one point I was interested in fellowship. I went to a program and they interviewed me, and I asked like, oh, have you had anybody from outside the program ever? They're like, no, we've never taken somebody from outside the program in 10 years. Then I'm like, why are you interviewing me? So, those programs are just going to waste your time and your money, but focus in on all the information. There's a lot of applicants that have made up lists that you can look at. You don't have to go pay a service to get those lists. I think also somebody mentioned interviews. So quite a few of you, like Kirtan, Thiago, I know your Gabriela have applied. So now your applications are in. So the interview is where you can make a big impact. So start preparing for the interview. What I would really tell, I told Kirtan this morning, do mock interviews, sort of get together and have a background. My background is a virtual background, but some programs have started giving these virtual backgrounds because then everybody looks the same. But having a background with some things like an instrument or books or things like that, it actually may become a topic of discussion. Be careful having things in the background. There was an applicant that had books, and the program director asked, did you read that book? They're like, yes, tell me about the book. And they didn't actually read the book. So it can backfire on you. So I've heard things like that. Or like an instrument, somebody had an instrument, a violin on the back. Can you play it? And they're like, no, it's just a decorative piece. So just be careful. But having a background with a few things, even I, during last year in virtual interview season, I commented on some beautiful backgrounds, artwork and things. If you've done a painting, put it in the background. Definitely that becomes a topic of conversation. So definitely do some mock interviews. I think Alice would also agree. Attire, even missing a tie or something like that. It was funny. Everybody had a tie, or the men had the tie, black and gray suits and things like that. Somebody stood out with a brightly colored shirt, and that becomes a topic of conversation. So don't deviate from what's usual. Everybody should sort of look the same. Alice, anything else you like to input? We're kind of running out of time.
Fine. Both ties are fine. I agree with you, and be careful with your background. I had someone who had a pile of laundry on her background and her bed showing, and we all talked about it, and we could not remember a word of what this person said because we were so taken aback by her pile of laundry on her background. So be careful with that. I completely agree with Ravi. I personally like a pop-up collar. I would think it's a good thing, but you don't want to be wearing anything that's dirty. You don't want to be wearing anything that it's not ironed. You don't want to wear anything that is not acceptable job attire. This is a job interview, even though you're going to be training. This is a job interview. So you would not show up. You will not show up for a job interview wearing pajamas. So just be careful with that. Bow tie's fine. Whatever tie's fine. Hair, personally, I don't believe we care much about hair. Whatever you have your hair, just be clean.
There's a wealth of information online too about how to have your camera up and so on. Having the one pet peeve I have is use the Ethernet connection, because if you drop out, it affects the momentum of the interview. And I've had people drop out. Then I'm like, how do you start up again? How do you pick up from where you left off? So it does negatively impact you. So make sure you can get somewhere where there's an Ethernet connection as well.
Thank you, Ravi.
Quite a few questions coming in, but I'll let you, if you have any more questions. We have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ravi. Yeah, I have a question, especially during COVID. Many institutions have closed their doors for international students. It happened to me. I am interested in Minnesota. I was accepted in a program to do a clerkship in Minnesota, and then COVID happened, and I haven't been able to find any clerkship. And this is not happening to me, but many international applicants. So how important are the clinical clerkships in the US during the COVID time? Because obviously it's very difficult to get a real-time clerkships in this year and the past year too. How has the application process changed because of the pandemic? I don't know if you want to start, Ravi.
Sure. Yeah. I think, like you mentioned, everybody has the same problem, so everybody will be on the same page. But I think institutions have started opening up. I have had people come in now to do, we don't do observerships anymore, but sub-internships. So I have an FMG student right now. I have another one after that. So I have a number of FMG or IMG students coming in to do rotations. So they are available. You just have to look in the right place.
Dr. Gallo.
I'm afraid I don't have anything else to add, because we are the same situation. Mayo Rochester has never had an observership program. We only have visiting medical student, and we do use the VMS platform. And there are several programs that are not like us, that will take people without hands-on clinical experience, and will take people with observership. So I would take a deep breath and calm your heart.
One interesting statistic. So we have US IMGs from the Caribbean. There's 30, 40 schools down there. They rotate here. But what's interesting is they have 2 years of clinical experience in the US, and IMGs actually match at a higher rate from non-Caribbean, non-US schools than the US IMG. So what is that telling you? That's telling you that maybe with their rotational skills, the non-US IMG is at a better advantage with higher scores and so on. But Alice is absolutely correct. For this year, since we're doing virtual, everybody's having the same problem. It may not have as big an impact. But once the doors are open up, hopefully we get through COVID, there'll be more availability for rotations.
So thank you, everyone. So this is going to be divided into two episodes. And if Dr. Gallo and Dr. Ravi don't agree, we can prolong. Is that okay for you guys to do another episode?
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
can stay a little longer also if people want to stay a little longer. I'm perfectly fine staying.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, if they have questions.
Okay, so we're gonna start another episode right now. So why don't you go ahead and ask your question, Gabriel?
Sure. So I wanted to ask about how to study in a clerkship, because we as international students, we often don't have this opportunity to match, and we have to take the most of it if we have it. So for example, we were talking about communication skills, how other important qualities we should demonstrate during a clerkship. And also maybe if you want to elaborate about the importance of previous research experience in the ERAS application.
Please go first, Dr. Gallo.
Okay. So I would say I'm gonna answer like divided parts if that's okay with you. So I would say for you to shine during a clerkship, you want to make sure that you are the first one there, the last one to leave. You want to be the best team player. So like cannot emphasize enough how helpful it is when someone offers to call a consulting service, for example, when an intern has to write 12 notes, put orders for all of those people. If you're like the student saying like, hey, can I call the whatever pulmonary team and discuss the case with them? Dude, yes, extra points. And then that intern is going to send an email to the PD, is going to send an email to the attending rotating with you. Again, those little things, they add up. To study during the clerkship, I would make sure that you ask to take care of 2-3 patients and know everything about all of their problem list. See your clerkship, if you can get one, as the month that you're going to be studying when everyone else is sleeping, that you're going to be eating while you're studying, that you're going to be and I would give the same advice to any medical student, including American grads, to be honest with you. I think the clerkship means that that's the specialty you want to do. And if you can't be in your best behavior, and if you can't be shining for a month in the specialty you want to do for your life, that's a problem. And one thing that I want to make sure to stress a lot is the reason why some programs won't take someone who didn't have a clinical experience in the US is because that month is a 30-day of interview. Is a 30-day interview for a visiting medical student. The same way that whenever we take someone, an internal candidate for fellowship, we can say we've been interviewing this person for 3 years and they did pretty well during the residency. So again, take that clerkship as a 30-day interview period, and make the best of it. And be welcoming and open to feedback. Ask for it. Ask for it. Is expected that people are going to ask for feedback and incorporate the feedback. Incorporate feedback that is given well also, because like some of us suck at giving feedback. So make sure that you take feedback that is actionable, that is about a behavior, that is not personal. If feedback is personal, you completely can delete it because it's not fair. Like people tell me all the time, you should speak less. Huh, good luck with that. So again, make sure that that is about a behavior and not personality, and take into account and use it. So growth mindset. First 48 hours, observe who's going to be on your corner, and then tap into those people and be like, hey, can I present this case to you like first, and then you give me feedback. Because you will have people on your corner. Every team will have the Alice, will have the Ravi that is going to take someone under their wing and help them. Every team will have that person.
I can speak
Lovely.
volumes to that. Those are some great points, and I'm a sort of an example of that, because when I did my sub-I worked my tail off, and guess what happened? I was facing doom and gloom. I'm like, what am I going to do for this year? I missed the chance to apply, but then they called me down and like, hey, we like you. We want to give you a spot. So you never know what can happen. You know, sometimes life can turn around for you magically. And then I rotated in shock trauma critical care university. And the fellows were like, we want you here for, I almost went for pulmonary critical care, Dr. Gallo too. But then I was like, you know, I don't know. It's too much for me. But they were like, I was there. Even on the holidays, I showed up. And like the chief fellow was like, you're not supposed to be here. But they're like, okay, I helped them write the notes. I took care of everything, rounding everything. And they were like so happy, you know. So just being there, being the first one, leaving the last. And this gives you ample opportunity to then, you know, improve your skills in presentation and so on. And, you know, always look for feedback. That sometimes can be a problem with understanding feedback here. Feedback can be both positive and negative. It should be helping to build you up, not break you down. So some people, unfortunately, will always be negative, but don't take it the wrong way. Also be very professional, courteous, avoid any confrontations, remove yourself from any confrontations. You know, unfortunately, there still is this stigma that IMGs are inferior. We're not supposed to have this sort of mindset, but it's still there. I just want to put it out there. But there will be some people that will have this mindset, but you just have to be careful and cautious and not to run into any confrontations with them.
Awesome. Why don't you go ahead, Kirtan?
Yes, so first of all, I wanted to thank both of you because you are answering every question so enthusiastically. So I'm learning a lot. And now moving to the next part. So as we know that this year also interviews are going to be virtual. So I wanted to ask that how to excel in interviews. I know it's a vague question, but still it is what is going to matter in the last thing. Your scores and CV, everything is fine, but interviews are going to matter the most. So what are some of the must not do things and must do things during the interviews? And maybe Dr. Gallo, you can go first, and then we will have Dr. Singh go.
You guys are putting me in a tough spot. I always get first. But okay, do's and don'ts. I think we said a little bit of the don't. I think we pointed out a little bit of the don'ts in like the background and how to dress and things like that. Another thing is some people really behave in a way that it feels like they don't want to be there. So like, why are you here? So again, bring your A game. Make sure that we can tell you want to be there. You don't need to be like, thank you so much for this interview 10 times during the day, but like ask questions, engage. If I'm asking you about something on your CV, be prepared to answer it with passion, with enthusiasm. Make sure to like also, if I give you an opportunity to say something about your CV and you wanted to talk about something else, make sure you talk about that something else. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what makes you the awesome you that you are. So like there's nothing more off-putting, and Ravi, please correct me if you think differently, but there's nothing more off-putting than like, hi Curtin, very nice having you here, writing your CV that you wrote, like that you were on the CP Solvers, tell me about it. And you go like, yeah, I was in the CP Solvers. Man, why are you here then? Like, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about you. I want to know everything about you, you know? And I want to make sure that you guys know that this is me, like how I approach these things. I'm no way, shape, or form talking on behalf of my other APD Mayo Clinic colleagues, but I want to hear about you. So again, nothing more off-putting than like, yeah, I did this really cool thing. Don't know why you want to hear about it, you know? It's like, okay. Again, accents don't matter at all, but grammar does. So make sure that you practice your English a lot with ideally native English speakers so they can correct a few things. Again, accents are welcome. We have accents within native speakers in the United States, but grammar errors do translate into lack of interest or lack of attention to details. So again, very important. Other don'ts. Oh, I always ask a behavioral question that I'm not gonna give away right now, but like I always ask, a couple of behavioral questions, and I had people like punch tables when they didn't like the question I answered. So again, be careful. I speak a lot with my hands, which is again totally okay, but careful with like punching and noises like this, especially on virtual interviews. And I think those are my major like mishaps that I've seen on interviews. Oh, and I did have someone who had like a stain on their blazer. Again, just be clean, like clean. Or say something like, hey, just spilled coffee like 1 minute before you came in. Okay, I'm good with that. But address the elephant in the room if there's a stain there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Alice, about all those things you mentioned. And if you look at me and you look at Alice, do not dress like me, dress like Alice. I don't know if we coordinated before, but we're going to be like, don't interview like me, but be like you. So you see her jacket, you see a chair, you see a background, it looks all appropriate. I'm just a hot mess this morning, but yeah, be aware, go online and look up questions. Now, ACP has a good number of questions. There's only a certain number of questions that we sort of ask, a few questions that some institutions may have up their sleeve that you may not be ready for. But, you know, majority of times, if you're stuck, you don't know, maybe just discuss about your CV. I like to ask about, about your background. We want to know who you are. We want somebody who, is both interested and is receptive and eager to learn, but not too aggressive. I've had people that were so extremely desperate and it was just like, calm down, you don't have to work too hard in the interview, just be yourself. Also, do not be Mr. Robot-like, or Mr. Don't be too stiff, like the example that Alice gave. Don't be, of course, we're gonna be nervous, right? A lot of times we're nervous, you're nervous, because it's not easy over Zoom. But I'm a big fan of this Zoom virtual interviews. It's cheaper for the applicants, less carbon footprint. All the travel, all the hotel stay, the driving. It's very costly, and it's just adding a lot more to the environment as well. Last year, I don't know about you, Alice, but I enjoyed the Zoom interviews like we're discussing here. I think we can get enough of an idea of how somebody is. The mock interviews, I'm a big advocate for. So definitely for those of you that are interviewing, go on the ACP website, go look for questions, and then go through, maybe pair up and ask each other the questions. That way, you're more relaxed, because we want to see who you are. Are you going to come to the program, be a professional, be a team player, be able to converse with people? We don't want you siloed off from the group, because you're going to be a class, a PGY1 class. Everybody has to depend on each other. People will get sick and you'll be called in for jeopardy to help out. So we all help each other. Even I'm there helping interns, residents out. We all help each other. We're a big family at each of these institutions. That's how we all get along, and makes for a good and pleasing environment. I do want to just make you aware there are red flag questions that we are not allowed to ask. Some of them can focus in on like demographics, family dynamics. We can't ask, you're married, are you going to have children, sexual orientation. These things are not allowed, and you are allowed not to answer those questions. So just be aware of them, because unfortunately, there was a survey a couple of years ago, and 33% of the residents did say they were asked these inappropriate questions. I'm forgetting the other questions, but I kind of have to look over them. We can't ask you about are you applying to the program down the road? We can't ask those kind of things as well. But Alice, anything else you have to say about this?
And about, like, I have two things I want to say. See, I have so much to say. Sorry about that. So one thing is, if you get those questions, see that as a red flag from the program, and don't put yourself in that situation if you don't have to. If it's your only interview, okay. But if you have other places that you can be rank that one lower, because it's not fair. It's not fair. If a program has problems with you having children, that's probably not the program for you. If a program has problems with the color of your skin, that's probably not the program for you. So again, just, if you can't afford not to rank those places, please don't. If you can't afford, that's okay. Ravi, I want to take a segue, if that's okay with the CP Silver Ski Call. when you said like dress like Alice, not like me, I want to make sure that I put that out there, that I do a lot of research, academic research, and I have publications on social media for medicine and things like that. So I really tend to my personal brand a lot. So I want to make sure that I put a plug out there so you guys can start thinking. You're very early on your career. Um, I'm becoming grandma already because apparently I'm already in a mid-career. So I was like, I heard that the other day. I was like, oh, okay. But do think about your personal brand. It can change every so often. It's not a stiff thing. But since I knew people might be tweeting this, since I knew people might be Instagramming this, I'm not on Facebook, so I don't care about Facebook. But like, I was like, I better dress up because if I'm gonna be online on pictures, I need to tend to my like dressed up brand. So I just wanted to say that.
Actually, that's a great idea. You actually made me think of something. Be careful about your social media nowadays. I don't waste my time going on social media to look up candidates, but there are people that will look you up. So if you have social media where you're out drinking the night before the residency or something like that, if they see that, that might reflect negatively. So just be careful, especially if you do post those things. But I've heard of that. The other thing is toxic interviews. Alice, actually, that was a great point that you brought up. I've heard of interviews. Somebody went to an interview and they're like, one of the interviewers were like, well, what can I do for you? They're like, oh, interview me. What can I do for you? I'm here for an interview. What can I do for you? So they were like, not sure, like, are they trying to elicit like an angry response or something? But I thought that was a very toxic and inappropriate situation. I told the person, just get out of there. Do not even consider that, because that is disrespectful. Even we have a standard set of sort of behavioral questions that we can ask, what would you do in a situation like this? What would you do in a situation like that? But, just not respecting the candidate, I just think that's a big red flag. And if you feel uneasy in an interview, or you have these red flag questions or things like that, don't consider an interview. You're going to be with that program for 3 years, and you do not want to be upset and they're going to put you down or things like that. But it can happen potentially. It's a long process. I know a lot of you are following this, applying to 100 programs plus because you're an IMG, and it is a lot more easier with the virtual interview. But you may end up having a boatload of interviews, and it can become quite exhaustive. But definitely keep up that momentum during the interview process, because initially you'll be very excited. Towards the middle, you'll start getting sort of a little lagged or tired. But keep going outdoors for walks, clearing out your mind, looking through some brief material to be prepared. It may either get busy or may sometimes start to weigh you down. So you don't want to lose that momentum and energy during the interview process.
Thank you. So this is the final question. Why don't you go ahead, Vali, please?
Yes, thank you, Rafa. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, perfect. So finally, we wanted to ask you, and thank you so much for all your generosity and honesty on your answers. This has been really an amazing experience to hear you both. So the final question is, what final piece of advice would you give for IMGs to succeed in the USA based on your experience? Maybe Dr. Gallo, you could start.
I sure can. I'm gonna say I just typed what I was gonna probably say on the chat box. Don't forget your why. Like, why did you go to medical school? To take care of people, to take care of souls, to take care of someone's dad, to take care of someone's kid. Don't forget your why. That would be like my advice for success anywhere in life, anywhere in like jobs, anywhere you decide. And another thing is, don't forget that your interests and where you are in life might change tomorrow. And it's okay to change, it's okay to grow. it's not okay to be stuck somewhere that is not good for you and for your soul, and it doesn't align with your why. But again, I'm old. I've been through this 10 years ago, so to me, it's very easy to see now. But to me, again, it has always been very helpful. Never forget my why. I went to medical school to take good care of people. So
Before going to Ravi, I just wanted to re-ask the question again because we had some problems listening to you, Vale. So the final question is, what final piece of advice would you give for IMGs who wants to succeed in the USA based on your experience? Why don't you go ahead then, Ravi, please, Dr. Singh.
So did I hear the question correctly? What advice to succeed in residency or in applying to residency?
In the US as a general question.
Okay, so I kind of will cut it into two halves. So before applying to residency, for those that are going to be applying, work, your tail off for these steps. If you can, put in the time. And actually, you have a lot more resources. UWorld, actually, one of the founders of UWorld was at my institution, a good friend of mine, Chandra Pemasani, who came up with this. And he wasn't satisfied with the questions and things that were out there. So he decided, and I remember he'd be in his room at his apartment making questions, and that's how UWorld came about. So now I know everybody's using UWorld for the step questions. So definitely try, get the high score you can. It definitely helps, I would say, but it's not the end all. We've had, like I told you, I had a candidate with low scores, but is an amazing intern, and they sort of bolster the application with research and other things other experiences that they did. Once you get into residency, I think you really want to prove to the program that, hey, you chose a really good candidate, and I'm going to work hard. And as you well know, the learning never stops. You come on CPS, we have cases every day here. You learn things that you never heard of. It's just expanding your horizons and your mind. Sometimes it's mind blowing what you learn, and especially the process of learning and critical thinking is very helpful. And I'm very excited to see what a lot of you are gonna do once you apply and get into residency, because you're already you already have an advantage. You're spending a lot of time on CPS and you're learning how to think, and you're going to take this into internship and just take that to the program. So definitely continue this passion and continue on in this endeavor. But yes, work hard. Every day is an opportunity to learn from your patients. So learning here is more experiential, right? Experience-based learning, whereas some places will be didactic-based learning. So here it's a lot more learning from your patients, reading after each patient, we use UpToDate in a lot of facilities, very easy sort of reference material that you can look at. And then on time off, definitely pursue, like Alice mentioned, hobbies, have some break time. You want to clear your mind out because you do spend an awful amount of time in the hospital. We have other things that are instituted. We have duty hour work weeks, so you're not supposed to spend as much time, more than a certain number of hours per day. So you do get some time off. You're not expected to stay in the hospital all day long, but definitely, work hard. Just remember, like Alice mentioned, why you're here. Don't lose focus of that. It's not like you get into the program and then you're like, okay, I'm in the program and everything's going to be given to me. No, you will be in a place where you'll be given an opportunity to learn and practice medicine. And every case is a potential learning experience.
Any final thoughts, Dr. Gallo?
enjoy the ride.
Any final thoughts, Ravi?
Just be your wonderful self. And everyone's amazing. This is an amazing journey that you're about to set out on. And I can just tell you, I have one beautiful story of an intern that I had. I think I kind of told you in the waiting room. I had an intern that was very bright, but she had difficulty with English. Her English was not as good as what I'm hearing here. And there was a lot of problems with like communicating with patients and communicating with faculty. And especially presenting histories to the patient, to the attendings, everything was not in the appropriate place, so it's not presented well. But I could tell when I worked with her that she's very smart. But then I asked what's going on, but she was like saying she has to take the English and translate to Spanish and then be able to understand what's going on. So there was an extra step in trying to process what she was hearing. So by working with her, she just blossomed into this amazing intern. And I'm very proud to say, and I get emails from her, she's up at Boston at Harvard as a nephrologist in training. So it's just remarkable to see the story of IMGs, how they come, they grow, they contribute to the physician workforce. And lives are changed. I've had interns come from villages and in faraway places, and they walk barefoot to school, and they somehow made it to medical school. They worked hard and they come out of poverty and they come to the US, and now they're outstanding cardiologists and amazing physicians. So it's a life-changing event for a lot of people. So just something I just want to put out there.
And can I add something to what Ravi said? When you get there, when you are a nephrologist at Harvard, bring someone with you. Don't forget today.
Yes, I'm a big believer in that. Pay it forward, right? What goes around comes around. I mean, people have helped me, so that's why I'm here, and that's why I, even being a medical student, I had occasions where I had a very bad rotation. I was like, on my watch, I will never have a med student or an intern ever suffer like this.
Exactly.
Because what is toxic does not have to be reciprocated. So definitely pay it forward. Beautiful, Alice. That was a great thing. Great point that you mentioned.
Stop the toxicity on you. Like, stop it. Make it go away and pay it forward. Ravi and I did not get here alone. Promise you.
Right. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Right. So definitely.
Also, just incredible. Like, I've learned so much with you all, as I knew I would. And on behalf of everyone here from the CP Solvers and everyone who attended, we just wanted to thank you for taking your time. We know how busy you are with our application coming, and just thank you. And I know for sure that this episode will help not only IMGs, but also AMGs. And I just hope that everyone who's listening to this episode can take something out of it, and it can help us somehow in your journey. And I just wish you the best of luck for everyone here on this ERA season, and also that Dr. Gallo and Dr. Singh have the best candidates. So thank you, everyone, and this was such a blast. Really thankful for that. Bye.
Hi, Rafa. May I say one quick thing before you stop the recording?
Sure.
So, folks, I just want to tell you where I am. I was listening to the wisdom of Ravi and Alice on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and I will turn my video on to show you. Here I am. Look at this. And I will turn my video off because I look like a fool with my bandana. But I wanted to tell you something. I'm so inspired by Ravi and Alice, and there's so much for me to reflect on personally, but I just wanted to say it publicly. I think I would hope that all of you view the CP Solvers as a bridge, as a free, continuously free access to what we continue to do. And I'm so inspired by Alice and Ravi to continue to do work specifically in this space to make the bridge between the world and US medical education smaller and easier to navigate. So thank you so much to Ravi and Alice for being the inspiration. And I hope that this is the beginning of a long journey to make the bridge that I am on, the Golden Gate Bridge, which is really the flagship for this, to be a bridge that you can all admire, walk on, and jog with me someday. And hopefully with Alice and Ravi joining us. So thank you so much. I couldn't be more inspired. I couldn't be happier. And I have half a mile left. So before I run out of steam, I'm going to keep going. But a heartfelt thank you to Ravi and Alice, and to Rafa for leading this incredible effort. Couldn't be more grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Rafa. Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye-bye.
Saturday.